I'm Valerie Hale. We have 6 innate superpowers. We're born with them. Morrissey and Bob Proctor have created an amazing program which addresses this and teaches us how to exercise and invoke these 6 powerful gifts. These are gifts that very few of us open and use. They are imagination, perception, intuition, the will, memory, and reason. Imagination is one of the foremost gifts that it's important for us to use again. As children, we used our imagination to see ourselves as firemen, as ballerinas, teachers, as doctors, and now as adults, we're thwarted from using our imagination. Let me share with you, imagination is what just took us to outer space as a tourist trip. Imagination has created the internet. Imagination is what helps us survive and thrive. An example is Charles Plum. He is actually worldwide famous because he is a jet pilot fighter who not only survived being a POW in Vietnam, but now travels the world and tells people how his imagination took him to areas where he didn't think he would survive and thrive, simply from using his mind and his imagination in the right way. It was the last 5 days of Charles Plum's duty, his tour duty, and he was on his way to Vietnam. A ground-to-air missile shot out the back of his plane. He ejects, and his parachute works. As he lands on the ground, he is captured by the Vietnamese. He is to spend 5.5 years in solitary confinement. He is determined to survive and somehow make it mentally. As he's in solitary confinement, he's using his imagination, his mind, to go over his past love life, his girlfriends, his favorite dates, his favorite books, all the things he's read. And he tells us that lasted about 3 months. Of course, he doesn't know he has 5.5 years in solitary confinement, but he knew he was going to have a long time. One day he sees, or he hears, a scratching noise at the bottom of his cell wall. He thinks it's a cricket or some kind of insect. When he looks closer, it's a wire that's going back and forth from the other cell next to him. He sees this and he gets absolutely excited and thrilled that, oh my gosh, there's a pilot next door. I'll be able to talk to him and we can talk about our piloting experience, our flying experience, our jets. His imagination takes off in the right way. Then he goes down a rabbit hole and he starts thinking, oh no, I can't even touch that wire because this is probably a senior jet pilot, a senior official, and he'll think I'm a failure because I was caught, because now I'm a prisoner of war. I can't converse with this person. I can't pull on that wire. What if he thinks I'm a crybaby because when I'm tortured, I do cry? You can see where he's going. He backs into a corner of his cell and he convinces himself in 2 hours that he can't do this. He's having all kinds of second thoughts about himself. And after a few hours, he says, this is ridiculous. I'm one of the best jet pilots out there. I survived using my parachute. He tugs the wire. The wire goes back. It comes over with a note wrapped around it. This pilot in the next door cell has been in confinement already for 2 years. And he teaches Charles Plum how to communicate using this wire. This pilot used his imagination to create a whole nother way of communicating. Charles Plum goes on to tell us that when he's at dinner, once he is released 5.5 years later, he goes on to tell us that he and his wife are at dinner, and some gentleman walks up to him and says, "You're Charles Plum." And he goes, "Yeah." And you jumped out of your plane successfully, and you were captured, and you spent 5.5 years in solitary confinement. And he's, "Yes. How do you know all this?" And the gentleman says to him, "I'm the one who packed your parachute." That's a big deal, folks. And so Charles Plum hears me up. Charles Plum gets up and he hugs him. And so Charles Plum says to us, "Who packs your parachute? We pack our parachute." What's important to also know is this took a team for him to leave as a prisoner of war, a former prisoner of war. It was his cellmate next door. So it's okay to ask for help to pack your parachute. Your imagination is so powerful. Start using it right now. If you're not living the kind of life you really want to live, go to my website. Take those master classes. They're free. There's so much information out there that will help you pack your parachute. Kundalini Yoga. Speaking of packing your parachute, this is another realm that has helped me tremendously get through 26 years of my life. One of the kriyas that they teach us is when you put your head upside down below your knee. I think they call it the upside down dog or something. Anytime you're in a position where your head is below your knees, you're bringing blood to your facial area, to your brain, in a good way. This actually produces collagen. All those folks who are using botox can stop and start doing Kundalini Yoga. It also has specific kriyas for menopause. I'm pushing 65, and my menopause was long and uncomfortable. But I did use Kundalini Yoga to alleviate some of the symptoms. It's so easy to do, and I'm strongly suggesting for all you women who might be going through a little bit of rough time there with menopause, go to my website, click on yoga, send Hara Prakash an email and say, "We need help." Lastly, with Kundalini Yoga, one of the things they have taught me is the anti-cancer breath. You literally stick your tongue out, you pant like a dog. It's ugly, you don't do it in public, but this is all about preventing viruses. In case you haven't noticed, coronavirus is a virus. The Delta variant is a virus. This is one of the most natural ways to keep yourself healthy and to also heal yourself. Lastly, wine. The weather in the Pacific Northwest, including Napa Valley, California, it's alarming for anyone who is in the wine industry. Cabernet Sauvignon used to be the king of grapes there, but with this weather, it is running the vineyards. What's happening is this extreme heat, it cooks the grapes on the outside, and there's no juice on the inside. They're raw on the inside. This means they cannot produce a vintage. They can't crush these grapes. They can't make wine when the weather has cooked them. What many of the vintners who are forward-thinking are doing instead of planting the same clonal varietals, they are looking at different clonal varietals of Cabernet, but more importantly, they are looking at grapes that do thrive in warmer climates. Touriga National is from Portugal. It's one of those. Also, Alicante Bouchet is another one from Portugal that can survive and thrive in warmer climate. Tannat is, usually you see it from Chile. Delicious. I love Tannat. If you can find a wine that is 100% Tannat, I strongly suggest you snap it up. So those three varietals are some that the vintners are experimenting with because they realize that climate change is here. It's damaging our food. It's damaging our wine, and they are being aggressive because this is their livelihood. It's not going to change. Winemaking is not going to change. We're all going to be drinking. What I do suggest is you start looking at these other varietals. You might as well start looking at other countries too, because Oregon and Washington experienced 116, 120 degrees. So if you haven't ventured out of the United States when it comes to drinking wine, I would strongly suggest you start that. In conclusion, your imagination is one of the most powerful gifts. If you have not opened your imagination, or it's been a long time since you have, strongly suggest that you start this. When you do visit my website and click on Wealth, there are a couple of master classes you can take that teach you how to use your imagination. Kundalini Yoga, the anti-cancer breath, is vitally important in our pandemic climate, and we are going to have a pandemic, I think, for a long time, folks. Also, natural healing. You can produce collagen naturally. You don't have to use botox. And guys who are listening, this is for you too. This is not just women-oriented practices. Lastly, if you are a Cabernet Sauvignon Napa Valley fanatic, you better start snapping them up, because after this year, I simply don't see Cabernet Sauvignon producing the high-end, exquisite wines. Get to work. And lastly, I am not a life consultant. I am not a life coach. I produce this podcast every Wednesday in order to help hundreds of people. I am an affiliate, and when you do click on those master classes and decide to enroll in a multi-week program, I get paid. Merci.